Welcome back everybody. In today's video we are going to compare the last 8 GPUs we have posted for this channel and compare them to each other. It's all well and good to test the GPU against some benchmarks and games, but I feel comparing them to each other will give a more realistic view of each one. After seeing them compared using the same benchmarks and games from the original videos, we will see then how they rate using the GPU that was the most popular from this list on Steam. So stay tuned to see which one that is and which GPU is the best altogether. Okay, so is everybody strapped in and ready to go? Cool. First up is Unigine Heaven at 1080p with the Ultra preset, and as you can see, a real mix-up of results. That's either GTX 770 just taking the lead in this one with a 6 FPS difference or a 16% gain over the 960. The others, with the exception of the 550 Ti and the 650 Ti, all seem to land between 19 and 27 FPS on average, and the 1% lows are between 10 and 16 FPS. Staying with this resolution but using the lower settings sees the 770 win again with a 20 FPS difference over the 960, or about 12.5%. This trend continues when at 720 with the Ultra settings, the 770 beats out the 960 once again, but at the lower settings we see a reversal with the 960 coming top with a lead of 17 FPS, which is an 8% advantage. Only the 550 doesn't score over 100 FPS, lagging far behind. Unigine Valley at 1080p with Ultra settings sees the duel continue between the 770 and the 960, with the former coming out at 8 FPS better, which is a 23% increase, so that's not too shabby. As with Heaven, the 550 Ti and the 650 Ti lag far behind. Lowering the settings sees the 770 and the 960 virtually neck and neck, and also sees a new last place with the 560 Ti only registering 24 FPS. Normalcy is returned however when we set the settings back up to Ultra at 720p, with the 770 having a lead of 23%, same as before, over the 960, which is an increase of 15 FPS. The 550 Ti returns to last place for this one. And finally, onto the low settings at 720, there is a three-way race between the GTX 750 Ti, the 770 and the 960, with only 5 FPS to separate them all. Just behind that sees the 560 Ti and the 570 and the 660 Ti race even closer, with just 2 FPS covering them. The 550 Ti is still in last place, but it's put up much higher FPS than usual. Over to superposition at 1080p with the high settings, this sees a return to the normal for all the 1% lows from now on in. However, the race is still being led by the 770, with the 960 second, but with the 660 Ti hot on its heels. The 550 Ti returns to its crappy normal at the back, with no FPS to speak of. Lowering the settings sees no change in positions, just an improvement across the board in FPS, with 770 having 20 FPS lead over the 960, and the 960 is being chased down by the 660 Ti. At 720 at Ultra settings sees no changes, however. All the GPUs beyond the 960 seem to be bunched up a bit though. And finally at the low settings, the 770 takes a huge increase of 28 FPS over the 960, which is a 32% difference. As you were for the rest of them, and the poor 550 Ti is struggling along in last place. MSI Combustor next with the Fairmark benchmark at 1080p sees the top two closer to each other, but the main difference is in last place. The 570 failed to run any of the Combustor benchmarks and scores 0 in all of them, which sees the 550 Ti off the bottom and very close to the 650 Ti. The other strange result is seeing the 560 Ti and the 660 Ti tied at 31 FPS. At 720, the strangeness continues, with the 570 still not being able to run the benchmark, and also the 560 Ti virtually having the same FPS as the 960. And just behind them, the 660 Ti and the 750 Ti are very close indeed. 770 leads the way again with a 28 FPS lead, a difference of 44%. Staying with Combustor, using the Testmark X32 benchmark, sees the 570 fall again and the 550 Ti next to last, but up front it's changed, with the 960 being 10 FPS faster than the 770 and the 660 Ti not far behind both of them. At 720 sees the 660 Ti have a massive 41 FPS advantage over the 960, 50% in fact, and in turn sees the 770 pushed out to third, only 10 FPS faster than the 560 Ti. Okay, so all that aside, shall we have some realistic tests now? We're going to look at some games which will provide probably a more realistic outcome to how these GPUs really are. Just a note as well, on the next GPU video that we do, the method of benchmarking is going to change. We're going to dump Heaven and Valley, keep superposition, dump Combustor. We're going to use the 3D Mark tests, Night Raid, Firestrike and Time Spy. And also there's going to be about 12 to 14 games, not decided yet, but it'll be a more thorough working over the GPUs from now on. Get subscribed so you won't miss that. Should be more interesting than this one. First up is CSGO at 1080p with high settings. 770 still leads here, but not by much over the 960. However, the pair of them are way out in front of the next place GPU, the 750 Ti. The 550 Ti still last, but very close to the 560 and the 650 Ti. Although the 550 Ti scores poorly in the synthetic benchmarks, it's good to see a respectable 69 FPS. Keeping the same settings at 720p sees the 960 pull ahead with 30 FPS advantage over the 770. The 550 Ti and the 650 Ti are tied for last, but the pair of them are not far behind the 560 Ti. Again, it's encouraging to see that older GPUs can push good FPS in this game particularly. Okay, on to Rocket League. Not Rocket Lake like I said in the last one. Rocket League. Now at 1080p, high settings sees the strangest of results, with the 960 just edging out the 570, which now seems to be flexing its muscles, with the 2 generations newer 770 coming third. The 560 Ti is close on the heels of the 770. Surprisingly though, seeing the 660 Ti coming in last is a shock, and it's quite a way back off the 550 Ti. Going down to 720 and the weirdness continues, with the 570 still leading, beating out the 660 Ti this time, and sees the 770 third again. But the surprise this time is the 960 coming so far behind and just being edged out by the 650 Ti, although it's probably just margin of error, but still. The 550 Ti scores over 100 FPS this time with 123. And we would move on to GTA 5, but if you've seen any of my previous videos, you will know that 6 out of the 8 of them that I did, I had the VSync option on, and it was on half, and it ruined the benchmarks, but I didn't realise like an idiot until way too late. So we're still going to use the FPS and the 1% lows, but I'm not going to go through what they scored and whatever. We'll just move on to the end. So, how are we going to chart all these GPUs? Well, the first chart is combined FPS and 1% lows of everything we've already seen to give us a ranking. And as we can see, the 770 takes it by 2.25%, or 72 FPS. Better. The second place is the 960, and there's no surprise that these two have been dueling it out all the way, that they come to top 2. The 960 is way in front of the 660 Ti, nearly 19% in front. Fourth is the 570, which is a surprise seeing that it couldn't do four the benchmarks really with the two resolutions. If it had been able to complete them, how much further up would it be? Would it have been in front of the 660 or even the 960? We'll never know, but it's something to think about. Anyway, the 570 was nearly 14% behind the 660, and then fifth is the 750 Ti, which is a total of 86 FPS behind the 570, which is only 4%, but it's a lot of FPS. Coming in at sixth is the GTX 560 Ti, being 7% behind fifth place, and seventh is the 650 Ti, coming further back at 18% behind the 560, and no surprise the 550 comes in dead last. Boo-hoo. Just as a comparison, the 550 Ti comes a whopping 160% behind the 770. So as I said before, the most popular GPU from this list on this video on Steam as of August 2021 is the 960. This will be our 100% benchmark score, with the other GPUs scored in plus or minus depending on what they are. If you just take a look on the screen, you'll know what I mean, and it doesn't really need much explanation. 771 and the others didn't, but it's there anyway. and I think it's a good slide to have as a comparative across so many GPUs. I know they're older ones, but you know, there you go. So there you are. We had a very long-winded video. I am so sorry. I don't normally do these types of videos this long, but hopefully it was informative. But to be brutally honest, just to poo-poo on the video, all these cards are rubbish in comparison to today's cards. However, if you've only got a 550 Ti and you're playing games like Rocket League and CSGO, you're still going to get a very respectable FPS. You might not be able to play harder games than that, and brand new ones, you won't have enough memory to run them, but if you run light esports games, 550, even though it comes dead last, would still do it. So I hope this has been illuminating. Hopefully if you are thinking of buying a used GPU and one of these is them, you'll see how it compares to previous generations or newer generations. Or if you've got one of these cards and you're toying with, should I upgrade, or I can't really afford it because it's too expensive, then depending on what you play, one of these might be good enough for you to use as a stopgap until things get better, which hopefully is soon from what I understand, but you know, until it happens we will not believe it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like it and comment and subscribe for more content like this. And next time at the start of the video I will give you a snooze button if you want. So I'll see you in the next one.